Okay, so we are diving into dirty minds today.
Your pick.
Oh, yeah.
Now, before anyone gets any funny ideas.
We're not talking about that kind of dirty.
Right.
We are talking about the fascinating
Sometimes messy.
world of brain chemistry and how it influences our love lives.
It's amazing how often we think about love as this separate thing from our biology.
Like some kind of magic.
Yeah.
But this book really dives into the nitty-gritty of how our brains are pulling the strings.
Even when we're totally clueless.
Right, like that whole butterflies in your stomach feeling when you're crushing on someone new.
Sukel points to dopamine as the main culprit behind that.
You know, the reward chemical?
Sure.
But how exactly does that work?
Well, when we encounter something pleasurable,
Like a delicious meal, or
in this case, someone we're attracted to.
our brain releases a flood of dopamine, and that doesn't just make us feel good.
It actually creates a craving for more of that feeling.
So we're driven to seek out more interaction with that person.
Hoping for another hit of that dopamine rush.
So it's less like Cupid's arrow and more like our brain playing a slot machine.
Hoping for the jackpot.
Exactly. And what's interesting is that this dopamine response isn't limited to romantic attraction.
It plays a role in any kind of reward-seeking behavior.
Okay.
From enjoying a hobby.
To, unfortunately, addiction.
Wow. So that explains a lot about my love-hate relationship with chocolate chip cookies.
But back to romance.
Sukel talks about a study on women's clothing choices and ovulation.
Apparently, what women wear and how much they feel like going out dancing is linked to their cycle.
Yes.
Really?
Dirty Minds details this study that found women were twice as likely to choose outfits that showed more skin.
And were more interested in going clubbing when they were ovulating?
Wow.
Compared to other points in their cycle.
And it wasn't like they were consciously aware of making those choices because of ovulation?
It was happening on a deeper hormonal level.
That's kind of mind-blowing. Like, our biology is out here.
Making us act certain ways and we're just going along with it. Makes you wonder how much free will we actually have in these matters.
It's a fascinating question.
And it speaks to the complex interplay between our biology and our choices.
We're not robots, of course.
But these deep-seated biological urges
Influenced by hormones like dopamine.
can definitely sway our behavior in ways we might not even realize.
Okay, but what about the whole types things?
You know, like how some people are drawn to a particular look or personality?
Is there any science behind that, or is it all just personal preference?
Well, it's definitely not as simple as just saying.
Oh, it's all pheromones.
Right.
Although they do play a part.
Dirty Minds gets into how our personal experiences...
Cultural influences. And even things like attachment styles probably all factor into why we're drawn to certain types.
It's like this complex recipe with a dash of biology.
A sprinkle of upbringing.
Yeah.
And a whole lot of life experience thrown in.
So it sounds like the jury's still out on exactly why we have types.
But one thing that's definitely up for debate is monogamy.
I mean, are humans really wired for that one true love fairy tale?
Right? And Sukel dives into this too.
It's interesting because...
In the animal kingdom.
Strict monogamy is actually quite rare.
Okay.
It makes you wonder if maybe our cultural obsession with finding the one...
is more about societal expectations than anything inherently biological.
That's a great point. But what about the whole lovey-dovey feeling of being in a committed relationship?
Doesn't science have anything to say about that?
Well, here's where it gets really interesting.
Dirty Minds points to oxytocin.
That cuddle hormone we hear so much about when we form close bonds with someone.
Whether it's a romantic partner,
a close friend,
or even a pet.
Yeah.
Our brains release oxytocin.
And this seems to play a big role in feelings of trust,
attachment, and that overall sense of connection.
Okay, so oxytocin is like the glue that holds our relationships together.
It seems to be a key ingredient, yes.
But here's the chicken and egg question.
Does oxytocin cause happy relationships, or is it just a byproduct of them?
Like, if you're already in a loving, supportive relationship...
Your brain is probably swimming in oxytocin.
Right.
But is it the oxytocin that's making the relationship good?
Or is it just a reflection of the existing bond?
It's a tricky one.
Yeah.
Imagine trying to separate out the ingredients of a perfectly baked cake.
After it's already been made.
That's a great analogy.
It makes you realize how complicated these things are.
I'd like to put things in neat little boxes.
But our brains don't really work that way.
Exactly.
And speaking of not fitting neatly into boxes...
Dirty Minds goes on to talk about a fascinating...
and maybe slightly unsettling connection.
Go.
The link between love and hate.
Hold on, love and hate.
Those are like complete opposites. How could they possibly be connected in our brains?
Well, it's not that love magically transforms into hate.
Or vice versa.
It's more about how our brains process these intense social emotions.
Okay.
Remember how we were talking about oxytocin?
And its role in bonding and connection?
Yeah, the whole cuddle hormone thing.
Right. Well, it seems that oxytocin might not just amplify positive feelings.
It might actually heighten all our social emotions.
The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Huh.
So while oxytocin can make us feel more loving and attached to our partners,
It can also intensify negative feelings,
towards those we see as a threat.
or who are outside our in-group,
So it's like oxytocin is turning up the volume on all our social channels.
not just the lovey-dovey ones.
Exactly. It's less about love and hate being two sides of the same coin.
And more about them both being amplified by the same neurological process,
It's like oxytocin is putting us in high def.
emotionally speaking.
Wow, that's kind of scary when you think about it.
But also really fascinating.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Dirty Minds,
What's the biggest takeaway you hope our listener walks away with?
I think the most important message is that our brains are constantly at work.
Shaping our experiences of love and relationships.
Yeah.
Often in ways we're not even aware of.
It's true.
We like to think we're in complete control of our hearts.
But our brains have a lot to say about who we're drawn to,
Why we fall in love.
and even why we sometimes clash with those closest to us,
It's like our brains are the ultimate matchmakers.
even if they don't always play by the rules we expect.
Exactly. And while Dirty Minds answers some questions about love and attraction.
It also opens up a whole lot more.
Okay.
Like if our biology plays such a big role,
How much free will do we really have in choosing our partners?
it's a question that's likely to keep philosophers and scientists busy for a long time to come.
But hey, that's the beauty of it all, right?
There's always more to learn.
More to explore
Right.
when it comes to the messy, wonderful world of love in our brains.
So, to our listener out there,
The next time you feel that spark of attraction,
or find yourself wondering about the mysteries of the heart,
remember there's a whole lot going on beneath the surface.
yeah,
Keep asking those questions.
keep exploring those dirty minds.
Because the more we understand about how our brains work,
The more we can navigate the complexities of love and connection.